All right, and it should be live. Now, in this one, I'm actually going to be testing out this new software that I'm working on that is really just going to help me solve some of the challenges I have with live streaming. One of them being answering the same question over and over again, and then the other one being how the actual live chat works. It's sometimes like really tricky to keep up with the questions, right? So there's a lot of questions that come through. So I'm trying to solve that, and this one is I'm live for this one specifically to answer your questions, but also test out some of this new software. So until I actually get some questions, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to just take a look at this really cool video that I just tweeted about from Andrew Goodwin. If you're not familiar with him, he is a core developer on Django. He's a big reason that we have migrations, or maybe the reason that we have migrations built into Django. Also Django channels, he built that. And then now with all the async stuff that's going on with Django, he's done that. But this video right here is absolutely something that you should check out. So if you go on my Twitter, you can see the link to it. But even if you just search on YouTube, you know, taking Django's ORM async, fantastic talk. It's 25 minutes. It's definitely worth watching all of it. And I can't even believe it only has like under 1,000 views. It totally should have way more than that. So I highly, highly recommend that you guys check that out. So now we're getting a few questions in here. So let's take a look. GT, hey, thanks for being on here. And was it done by yourself or on the shelf? Yeah, I'm actually building it myself, because it's a topic that I'm trying to solve on my own. Hopefully it actually works well. Right now I'm actually not getting very good responses on the software on whether or not it actually is working, unfortunately. So, you know, there's definitely some bugs I need to work out with it. So I do intend to have more of these live Q&As, maybe shorter ones, fix some bugs and then come back. So thanks for the question. Leonardo, hey, how's it going? Sam, is that how you pronounce your name? Hello. Andrew, hello. Thanks for being here, guys. Marcelo, hey, how's it going, Marcelo? Would I make a video about Django Wagtail? Thanks for the suggestion. I don't intend to cover Wagtail anytime soon. I'm not a huge fan of Wagtail, honestly. I think it's a great package for those of people who really like using it. I personally I like having more granular control over things, and Wagtail it's just never been something that I'm super interested. Struggler28, why did you make videos private? What do you mean by that? Make the live videos private? Is that what you mean? Let's see. Next question. How do you search for a coding startup partner? So are you talking about a technical partner, Zumo TV, or are you talking about that you want to find a business partner, like you are the coder, or you want to have two people coding? This is actually not that easy of a question to answer, because it really depends on what your current social skills are. Like, so I would foster a lot more soft skills so you can communicate with other people in the way that would hopefully get them excited about your project, whatever that ends up being. March of the Titans book. I have a Django developer interview tomorrow. Any tips? Danny Greenfield, or Danny Fieldroy, I think is what his name is now, has a YouTube channel. PY Danny is his Twitter handle. He has a really good video on talking about interview tips. I would definitely recommend checking that out. He is much more qualified on answering really good developer interviews than I am. He's hired so many Django developers, so many more than I have. Cool. GT, what's your thoughts on learning Vue.js rather than React? Well, people love both React and Vue.js a lot, right? So it's kind of a combination of those two things that I think are really interesting. Is like, well, I personally like React, but that's the one I learned first, right? So if I actually learned Vue.js, I might be like, oh, I'm never using React. I do intend to use Vue.js more, because I think it's a good idea to have a better, base of more things than just a few. So I would check it out. I would learn it if I was you. You might as well just try it out. In my opinion, every JavaScript library, actually every software library, has a positive and minus, and it's up to you to decide which one of those things that you're really interested in, overcoming, right? So like Django has a lot of positives, about it, but some of the negatives are it just takes a little bit longer to set up, right? To set up and getting really functional because it has a lot of batteries built in. I would say Vue.js and React are very much like that, but they complement each other really well. Like they're very similar in the sense that they're a lot smaller, where Angular is like this built-in framework, and that's hopefully that answers your question. I don't know, maybe not. Please teach on deploying on an Apache server and making the server public. Yeah, so deploying Django on an Apache server, I've done it with Nginx, not Apache, but Apache and Nginx, the actual server part of it is not a whole lot different between Django and Nginx. And if you check out my series, Hello Linux, I have a bunch of blog posts on it. I have a bunch of videos on it too. You can totally learn how to deploy specifically from Hello Linux, because the Apache or Nginx part is only a small part of the whole if you're building it and doing it from scratch. Yeah. Amar Olaf, thanks for the question. Vishesh, is that how you pronounce your name? Sorry for the mispronunciations. I'm not, it's it's one of those things. I'm not great at pronouncing some names. Let me just check something here real quick. Just give me a second. Yeah. For some reason I'm not getting the responses from these live broadcasts on my tests. I know you can't see this, but I don't want to actually release it yet, which is why you can't see it. Okay. So that's not working yet. Definitely going to be coming back to having more and more questions answered. Okay, so Amar, I want you to make a 30 days complete video related to data. Oh, gotcha. So you want to see a series on 30 days of data science, basically, like how to actually do data science and take 30 days of doing it. That's an interesting idea. I do like that. Maybe that's going to be something that I'll have to do in the near future. What do you guys think? Does everyone else like that idea? If you do, let me know in the comments. Cool. This video, or basically any video, but definitely this video. So how to be an entrepreneur with Python. So like, how do you actually start a project that earns you a living or makes money? This is a question that you just need to test on your own over and over. So if you have an idea for something, you just need to make the minimum amount possible. Check out my series on MVP landing. So basically you just need to make an MVP landing page with a video explaining what you're building and try and see if anyone in that customer base or that audience will actually want it. So the easiest thing to do is to fill demand and not create demand, right? So Coding for Entrepreneurs, for example, fills the demand of helping people learn software and building applications, right? I didn't create the software. I didn't create the demand. I just learned how to use it myself, and then I teach other people how to do it. So there's a nice gap that I'm filling there. Certainly I have my own way of doing it, which is a uniqueness to it, but I'm not creating the demand. I just am filling the demand, just like answering these Q&As. Like there's some demand, maybe not a ton of demand, but there's some demand for you guys to get questions answered. So that's another reason I'm doing this. So you want to find an audience that needs something, and ideally, to me, you're a part of that audience. Like you are solving a need that you have that hopefully other people also have. And then as far as the Python side of things, well, there's a lot of ways you can take that by building web applications, other kinds of applications as well. So hopefully that answers your question, Joel. Thank you for that. Let's see here. So we've got like making the IP public, the private IP public. What, Vihesh, so you want to see how to make the IP public for deployment? I think that's what we're talking about here. This is another reason I need a software, is to have like threads from individual users, so I can click on the user's thread in this live chat to then go back up. That's another thing that would be really nice. I just haven't seen really great live chat programs. If you guys have, I would love to check it out, because it makes doing these live Q&As that much more challenging to actually answer your questions and have some ongoing conversation with this, you know what I mean? So the next question, how good is REST API in Django compared to other frameworks? So to build a REST API or RESTful API service in Django is amazing. There's a lot of tools to do it. The Django REST framework, I think, makes it the easiest, like by far. So you can absolutely build it and like actually crush with Django and the REST API. When you're saying compared to other frameworks, are you referring to like using Flask or Fast API? Well, if you're just wanting just an API and you don't have a lot of database transactions, or you don't have the need for user authentication, then something like Fast API or Flask are amazing, right? So you don't need to build out a whole lot of things. But if you need authentication, for me, whenever I need authentication, I just use Django to build in the REST API, because there's so many layers to Django that make the authentication super secure, and without me needing to put on a bunch of extra things that may or may not be secure, because it's like kind of cobbling together a solution, versus with Django, it's like already there. Hopefully that answers your question. If you're referring to other languages, I mean, that's kind of maybe outside the context of that question. But anyways, thanks for the question. Okay, so I scrolled and then boom, goes all the way to the bottom. Victor, legend. You are Victor. Thank you. Let's see here. Man, this is crazy, these live chats. I really wish I had my application working already. I wonder if you guys do it too. If you see the same thing, if you scroll in the live chat, does it like jump for you as well? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so next one. Glad to hear you again. Thank you, Andrew. Waiting for new videos with React and Django. Andrew, have you seen the Tweet Me 2 series? If so, is there something in that you're missing? Or like I definitely have a lot of React and Django stuff in the pipeline in general, because there's a new thing called Parcel Bundler that I found out about, parcel.js. I actually am going to show you this. So let's take a look. So parcel.js, let me just change my screen here. This right here, so parceljs.org, this is incredible. Like I really, really enjoy using it, because what you can do with Parcel is you just need to have a index.html page, and then you put in some JavaScript in there, and then you just run Parcel index, and it will actually build all of the requirements that your index.js has. So if you import React, but you never did npm install React or yarn add React, it'll do it for you. It does it automatically. Like it's so nice. So it also makes it a little bit easier to develop right in line with Django, to where you don't necessarily have to have a full other project. I mean, you know, there's a hot debate on whether or not you should be building your front end framework like React.js inside of Django, but you know, that's kind of for another day maybe, or another question. Yeah. So thanks for the question, Andrew. Programmer information. You're a beginner. How can you apply for a job at Upwork? Like, you want to work for the company Upwork, or you want to work on Upwork, like as a freelancer? So as a freelancer, I think you just fill out a profile. You probably have to put in some personal information in there, and then I think you can just do it. I don't see why it would work any different than that. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Amid, Django versus Flask for REST API. I just covered this, but it really depends on the project demands. So if it's a really small REST API, let's say for instance you're using OpenCV and you just want to extract faces, or any machine learning model for that matter, something like Flask or Fast API is great, because they're a small footprint, and then it's really just about making a REST API to interact with that model, the machine learning model, versus like the database and stuff like that. So hopefully that helps answer that. Next question, Angular versus React trade-offs. I think Angular versus React is very similar to Django versus Flask. Angular has a lot of things built into it that just sort of work out of the box. React is, I mean, you can have just one single function that is React. Angular is not quite like that. Flask is the same thing. You can have one function for one view on Flask. Personally, for user interfaces, I think React is much better, because there's all sorts of little things that you need to do with user interfaces that are small. They're not always these huge changes that you need to make. Angular sort of requires you to make a lot of huge changes. Not completely. I mean, setting it up takes a lot of time. So for me, I used to really like Django and Angular for the reason that they were both had all these batteries built in. But now I'm a big fan of React because then I can just change one really small thing really quickly and not have to necessarily debug the whole site. I'm sure that's true in Angular too, but I just really like making these little small applications with React. The other part of that about that is React, I can actually render out single individual components. I don't have to render out the entire project like you do in Angular. And maybe that's changed. I just haven't used Angular in a little while, but hopefully that helps. When you use server-side rendering versus client-side rendering, server-side rendering is great for SEO and build times or speed of the front end. So I mean, in general, I usually like using client-side rendering because what then I can do is put all of the client code in a content delivery network, so it actually caches on their local system and it moves fairly fast for that. I haven't had a whole lot of need for the server-side rendering because it adds a lot of complexity to the server side, which is not ideal in my case. Hopefully that answers your questions. What tips would you suggest for Django freelancing? First thing is working on those soft skills like how to sell and how to communicate, and also how to ask questions. And I mean, don't be afraid to be honest about your skill set. I think this is one of the biggest challenges I have with whenever I hire freelancers is it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And then we get into it and they really can't do it. Now I'm technical, so I know how to really unpack that. But somebody who's not technical might just get frustrated and not know why. So it's better that you just communicate with them and say, look, I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to work hard to figure it out, and I'll communicate with you the whole time. So the communication part's another thing. A lot of developers like, okay, I'm just going to step away from it and just work, and then I'll deliver the progress or the project on time. Unfortunately, like as managers or anyone that's hiring a freelancer, if they're technical, they would have most likely like systems in place, or hopefully would have systems in place to like check your progress. Whereas if they're non-technical, there's no real good way to check their progress other than just shooting them a message, like, I don't know, every hour or maybe not that often, but often enough to where you're like actually giving them real updates. That alone, I think, will help you a lot in your Django freelancing, but then asking a lot of questions, right? So if you ask a lot of questions about any particular project that you're building, it really shows that you're thinking a lot about this, and it's also helping the person hiring you to understand the complexity that you're dealing with, right? Like assuming that it should be one way or another is not always the greatest when it comes to building a project for somebody else, because then you spend all this time building something really cool, you send it to them, and they're like, wait a minute, this is not what I wanted at all. So getting clarity on that as soon as possible is key. So that's actually working as a freelancer. To become a freelancer, the recommendations I have for you are write a bunch of articles, like how-to articles. They could be literally what I just talked about, how to work with freelancers. They could be a bunch of articles related to the specific problems that you love solving, right? So let's say, for instance, you love solving list comprehensions, like all kinds of crazy list comprehensions. Write about it. Just write about it somewhere that's easy to find. I think medium.com is an easy way to like really break into that, where you don't have to like manage anything. You just literally write an article and Medium will help promote your work if it's really good. The other thing is actually having a portfolio of some kind. So if you're a visual designer, you certainly want to have a lot of visual portfolio. I think most visual designers understand that and do that already. If you're a software developer, you're going to want to have something on GitHub and a lot of things on GitHub with a lot of different projects, and ideally actually contributing to other open source projects of any kind. That's a good question. It's something I think about a lot, but hopefully that helps. Bablu, let me check my app again. Yeah, it's not working. Geez, there's something in the integration that's too bad. Okay. So I should probably ignore that for now, but it's like, hey, come on, why aren't you working? Please, you know? That is the fun thing about software, is sometimes it just doesn't work as you think it's going to. Yash, you are the best Django instructor in the world. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Can I start a machine learning series too? I have a few machine learning series on my website, but yeah, I definitely need to bring some to YouTube, right? I also have, oh, my headphones died. Well, I guess I'm not going to hear any of the feedback. Anyway, so I also have some interest in bringing more machine learning to YouTube, but also if you haven't seen my OpenCV stuff on YouTube, definitely check that out, because I think it's worth learning about, even if you don't fully know exactly how all that's working. Hopefully, it just sparks your interest to get a little bit deeper. I mean, that's really my goal with so many of my videos, is to spark your interest to go further and further down this software rabbit hole, because it's just so amazing. Like, I've had so much fun building software in different projects, and then also the confidence to be like, oh my gosh, like, that's a good idea, I should go build that. It's going to take a week or two, but then I'm gonna have it done, and I can then test it. Just like what I'm doing right now, I'm testing this other project that hopefully at some point I'll be able to show it to you. But the idea is just with machine learning, with anything, just go try it out, make a project, make it happen. Next question, how much of Django should I know before I apply to a job? And thank you for all your quality content on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. So how much of Django should you know? This is like really hard to say because of the job you may be applying for, right? So if you're helping a restaurant down the street that uses WordPress or something, and you want to help them have some e-commerce and all these different things, obviously you'd want to assume that you know how to do all that, at least to some degree. You know, that's or even freelancing, you don't have to know that much stuff. You just need to be able to communicate with whoever you're working with of what you do know and how hard you'll work to learn the rest, right? Now, if you're wanting to work as like a junior dev at a Django development team, you're definitely going to want to know all of the basics really, really well. So views, models, URL routing, maybe Django REST framework, form validation, field validation, tests. I mean, those are a few things offhand. So if you don't know any of those things, definitely spend a lot of time doing that. And you can check out my GitHub. So it's cfe.sh/GitHub. And if you go there, let me just show you real quick. If you go here, you can see all of the repositories that you can learn from, right? So e-commerce is a bit of an older project, but all of the source in here will challenge you as to what it is that you should know, right? So if you don't know how to do any of these things, that's okay. Just go through each section or each folder and figure out the things that you have gaps in, right? So even an older one like this, you'll definitely learn a lot from. So if you know how to do that, hopefully off the top of your head, then you'll probably be a lot more closer to being ready to having, to being capable of having a job or being hired for one of those jobs. These are good questions, and I'm giving pretty long-winded answers this time around, aren't I? Anyway, so hopefully that helps. Thanks for the question. Let's see here. Dennis, please make a video on deploying Django on Python Anywhere. Maybe at some point. I haven't had a lot of demand to deploy on Python Anywhere. I think they have a number of guides that are really easy to do. And also, I just don't use their service. I've never really used their service. I think I might have maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. But perhaps if they want to do a collaboration, maybe then it would make a lot of sense to do that. So we'll see. Question, when can we expect the videos of /pics handling of the Twitter clone Django series? So the Tweet Me Too series, in there, I think I talk about how to actually handle uploads, like videos or images uploads in React.js. I don't have a release date on that. Got a number of things coming. I definitely have on my blog how to handle large file uploads with AWS. So you could always check those things out if you're really needing it now. Django Rust Framework course, we already have one. We have a few of them, so check those out. Next.js or Gatsby.js. I actually don't use either one of those things enough to really give you solid answer there. So, but thanks for the question. Hello Linux is brilliant. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Lexogistics. It's funny. Which is best for API, Node.js versus Django? I mean, it really just depends on what it is that you're trying to do. So oftentimes you can use Django and Node.js in the same project, depending on how big of a project it is. But if it's a really simple project, just pick the one you know better and just do that, because they're both really good. Node.js doesn't necessarily have a bunch of things built into it out of the box. Like you might want to use another framework. Django is a framework. So the question that you're really asking is which is better for API, Node.js or Python? That's like a more accurate question, I think, because Node.js is not a framework. So anyways, let's see. Victor Rizzo, legend. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Did you try Django for automation tests? Yeah. So what do you mean by automation tests? Like, yeah, you absolutely have to use unit tests for Django. If you mean automation tests like using Selenium and something like that for the front end, you can absolutely use Django for that. That's something really cool. What do I think about Fast API? It's a great, fast, small framework that's really just moving forward in the right direction. It's really, really cool. What is the best proxy service to use when web scraping with Selenium or Chromium? I don't have an answer for that. I think there's a lot of different proxy services that you can use. So, yeah. Hey, how's it going? Looking sharp in the Chronoverse. Thanks, appreciate it. Thanks for all that you do. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. Any more with Django and React in the future? I think I mentioned this earlier that yes, I definitely need to do a lot more Django and React. So hopefully that happens soon. Thanks for the questions, guys. I really appreciate it. I don't know how long I'm going to go on today because I really wanted to test this live stream project that I'm working on for actually making these chats a little bit better. So that actual test failed. So I'm probably going to be hopping off here soonish, but hopefully I can get some more questions answered because I definitely have a lot of them. Thank you guys for all the questions. That's why I'm here. I just want to answer the questions that you have and help you solve some of the challenges you have. At some point in the near future, I'm definitely going to be doing a live streaming course. So it's not just these Q&A things where I'll actually cover something that we'll learn and maybe even do some live coding and then answer questions related to it. And then those sorts of things will make it a little bit more interactive and then just very topic based so that we're not jumping around. I think there's a lot of questions that quite a bit, like they diverge quite a bit from, one single topic, which is the point of doing a Q&A, but it'd be nice if we're all on the same page talking about the same topic and answering questions related to that same topic. Like a good example would be like regular expressions in URLs for Django or not regular expressions. Like that might be a good topic to just talk about that, discuss how these things work and what we need to do to improve them and all that. What do you guys think about that? Can I do some data structure and algorithm videos? Yeah, so what is it that you're trying to learn exactly? Because that's a very broad term. There's a lot of data structure and algorithm things that you can cover in pretty much any programming language. So yeah, what is it that you're trying to do? I skipped one. How to have separate logins in Django when I'm already a logged in user and log in another user, override the user, whether text ordinary user. Please, if you can help me. Okay, so like, how do you actually end a session for another user based off of someone being logged in? It's just as simple as that. You just delete their session and start a new session when that login happens. Without getting into the code, that's pretty much all I can really provide. I don't have that code example right off the top of my head. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Don't know if it did, but Okay, thank you. Shajar, hey, how's it going? What's up? Thanks for being here. What is your company or channel name? The channel name is Coding Entrepreneurs. The website is codingforentrepreneurs.com. CFE is a abbreviation that was given to me by my early students. And then where did I get the name? So I studied entrepreneurship in college, not coding, not software. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of some sort of online business. So I actually had a online business where I was like the non-technical guy. I mean, I had some technical skill, but I wasn't doing the major programming. I had a partner for that. We built this business together. It failed. It didn't go anywhere. He had to move back to India, and I'm in California. So we sort of diverged paths quite a bit, but the project ended up falling apart, and he gave me some really good advice on actually learning how to build software myself. And then he had a friend that helped advise me. And so I started learning software. I started learning how to code. And it just dawned on me that entrepreneurs themselves need to learn how to code. Non-technicals need to learn how to code because it's really not that complicated. It certainly can get really complicated, but it's really not that complicated. It's just logical. There's a very clear syntax on how you do things. Again, that there's like complexity in all of that, but the really underlying structure is pretty simple. So I realized as soon as I could build a web application, I realized, oh my gosh, every other non-technical that I've ever known should also know this, at least to some degree. They don't have to necessarily master it. They need to know it to some degree. So I decided to make a course, and it just fit. That Coding for Entrepreneurs just totally made sense to me. I made that course, and then I released it, and it just took off right away. So there was definitely something to it, and something for me doing it as well. And then, like, fast forward a little bit of time, maybe 6 months, 5 months, something like that, I decided to make a YouTube channel for all of my classes, so everyone had one single place to get your system set up. That was the initial thought, is like, hey, make a YouTube channel for that. And I wanted to distinguish the two from my course, Coding for Entrepreneurs, and my YouTube channel, Coding Entrepreneurs. And then also maybe at the time, writing out Coding for Entrepreneurs, I thought, I don't think you could do it exactly the way you can today. I mean, maybe you could, I don't know. But anyway, so it became Coding Entrepreneurs, that became the YouTube channel, and that's what it's been. So thanks for the question. Hopefully that answers what you're asking. Few use cases of Django 3.0 async. So if you ever need asynchronous functions, you absolutely can use Django's 3.0 asynchronous capabilities. A good example of that is doing asynchronous web scraping, and doing it with Django being the manager for it. Because you can scrape 5 pages at once, almost at once, they're concurrent, versus one after another. That'd be a way to do it. I mean, there's a lot of different other capabilities that you can use for async. Live chat is an obvious one, but Django Channels 2 has been around for a while specifically for that. Lexogist, MVP landing is the reason you signed up for my site. Oh, thanks so much. Appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I've done the MVP landing now for like 7 years, and I've improved it over and over and over again, specifically to help you get your projects off the ground. But I'm really glad that it's convinced you to go a little bit further down the rabbit hole. Tashin Hamid, love your videos. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching from Bangladesh. Nice. I'm in California, Southern California specifically. So thanks. If you're building a social media network today, what would you choose? Would you choose Django or another platform? Well, I don't think Django itself would do it alone. I'll just say that. But I would definitely start with Django. So like the Tweet Me 2 series starts with Django, but it also uses React for a lot of the heavy lifting. But there's another amount of services that you might want to have built into it, or using third-party APIs for it. A good example would be spam detection, right? So if you're on, if you're actually building a Twitter, you don't want to have somebody spamming the feed all the time. So you might want to have a third-party service specifically for that. Or you might want to have a microservice that's a machine learning algorithm that's going to predict whether or not it's spam. And that third-party service would probably be done in like Flask or Fast API that actually runs it. So that's actually what I end up doing, is having Django as the core and then building all of the necessary auxiliary services there, because they are really, really interesting. Thanks for the question. And so here's another reason. I just scrolled and then I lost everything. Man, that is frustrating. Okay. Scrolling up. Sorry guys if I missed your questions. I did a little scroll on this live chat and then boom. Then we lost it. This is a great question. So is Django and React actually a great combination, and why do we actually need React? What's funny is React developers would be like, why do we actually need Django? So it's kind of funny that you get the other side with my Django audience. So I sort of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but React, any sort of JavaScript front end, adds a user interface that feels a lot more native, as in like it's installed on their local system, than not using JavaScript. So I think React just makes it easier to write great JavaScript. It does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So that's actually why you use React or Vue or Angular, is it just speeds up the development time in the JavaScript side. So you could totally write pure JavaScript, pure vanilla JavaScript. Absolutely could do that. And it might be worthwhile, especially because JavaScript's getting a lot easier to write because of ES6, and whenever ES7 comes out, or ES8, or all of these versions of JavaScript, eventually it's going to be incredibly easy just to write pure JavaScript. But for a really long time, pure JavaScript was challenging to write. So some great developers made something called jQuery. jQuery is still used today. It's still it's very mature. It's still a great language to some degree. But to get things working well in jQuery, I think are significantly more challenging, as in they take so much longer than just using something like React or Angular or Vue.js. And so that really just unpacks this new level of interaction that your Django project won't have by default. Django itself, for the backend things, for the logic routing, the templating, there's a lot of really, really good things inside of Django that combining with something like React just really opens up a whole new world of what you can do for your web applications. So yeah, good question. Thanks for that. And I did mention this at the beginning. I'm not sure if you guys saw this or not, but I really recommend that you check out this talk from Andrew Goodwin. Just do a quick search on YouTube for it. It's 25 minutes long. It's amazing. I just tweeted about it too, but it's really seeing how thoughtful they are about everything they do in Django, and also how important it is that so much of Django's core remains consistent going forward. So much of the synchronous code remains consistent, so that really long-time Django developers don't have to relearn everything related to Django. But anyways, this talk is great. Andrew Goodwin is just like a phenomenal developer. I hope to be a little bit more like him someday. So anyways, so let's see. Willy Wonka. Hey, what's up, man? Welcome back. I think it's the same Willy Wonka. You're doing well. Weekend's been great. Thank you. The fires have died down quite a bit in Southern California. So the air quality is actually breathable, so we can go outside again, which is so nice. And because I got two little kids, you don't want to expose little kids to a bunch of toxins. So anyways, yeah. You got work, Nicholas. You've been doing well. Got some work on building some push notifications. Cool. Nice. What's my favorite IDE/text editor? I use VS Code almost exclusively now. I've heard a lot of good things about PyCharm or PyCharm. That it's just not free. VS Code's free and it's amazing, and Microsoft supports it. So yeah. And I also had a talk with their Python team, and they just showed me a bunch of different features that are really cool that I haven't gotten into a whole lot yet. But, you can really tell that Microsoft's really pushing really hard to make VS Code the industry standard. And I think in many ways it absolutely is, not just for Python, but for all other programming languages too. Which is no surprise. I mean, it's just a huge marketing thing for Microsoft, right? It just makes every developer be like, oh, Microsoft's got our back sort of thing. Where for a long time, I don't know if everyone felt that way. So yeah, it's hard to find someone dedicated like you. You're a legend. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I mean, that's like, it's a humbling to hear. I just really enjoy doing these things. And then the consistent challenge that is software is amazing. But then also like students that ask questions, students that take these courses, students that, commit to enrollment and, spend a good amount of money, like being a part of this with me, help reinforce it, right? So like if I was doing this all by myself and there was no results, it'd be probably kind of hard to keep going. But the fact that I have been lucky enough to have so many students being interested in what I do, and even just doing these live chats, like I haven't scheduled these at all, and I get all of these amazing questions, right? How could you not keep going, right? It's kind of like athletes. Like if you're an athlete, not to compare myself to a professional athlete, but if you're an athlete and you're going into the stadium, maybe not this year, but in general, you're going into the stadium and you got all these people cheering for you, and they want to see what you do. I mean, that's like such amazing momentum that it's like hard to really realize what they go through. And I get like a small piece of that because I get great fans like you guys coming on here and saying stuff like that. It's super humbling, but it also is super motivating to keep going. There's been many a times where I've just gotten burnt out, and I'm just like, I'm ready to stop teaching. But then I get some great questions that really, then I got these like things that make me ponder, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really need to. And even if I take a break from teaching, I always come back. It's always a great thing because I get to work with so many great people around the world. I mean, the other thing that's phenomenal about this is, I mean, I'm sitting in my office and I'm just talking to a camera, but I'm talking to people around the world, like we all have this capability now. And it's like, it's just mind blowing. My grandfather, he would lay roads in his town. And I think he also helped with a train that went through there. And it was like very, very local, right? I mean, talking to people from another state, maybe another country. I don't even know. I really wonder when the last time, or if ever, he talked to people from another country, which is nuts. But now everyone in the world has this capability. Maybe not completely everyone, because there still is some resource limitations. But sooner or later, everyone in the world is going to be able to talk to everyone else in the world, or at least have the potential to. Anyways, yeah. Thanks for the comment, and thanks for being here, you guys. I am like 20 minutes behind on the live chat. I'm so sorry. I didn't even realize it until I just saw the timestamps for this. But thanks for asking all these questions. You took my free course. Thank you so much, and you're launching your business next week. Congrats if you're still here. I don't even know if you're here anymore. Maybe you are, maybe not. If you guys want faster responses, those super chat things actually help me in many ways, but it also helps me just answer your questions really fast. They've been super effective, especially because of how the live chat scroll works or doesn't work. But good luck on your business, and tweet it to me. I'd love to check it out and see what it's all about. Any hints on your live comment software? I assume it's some sort of Beautiful Soup 4 or Selenium Scraper. No, actually, you don't actually have to scrape the live chats. YouTube, in theory, has an API that you can pull every 2 seconds or whatever to get all of the chats that are happening, the actual comments themselves. So I'm actually building something like that to make this a little bit more effective. The other part is, for me, is I get some of you guys that are on here all the time. I want to answer your questions more often, right? So if you show up more often, I want to reward you more often. So that's another aspect of this. But as far as doing web scraping, you don't necessarily have to do it for the live chats. The other thing would be really cool is that I could actually select one of those chats, and it would show up on the live chat itself. So what you see right here, this says live chat is unavailable. There's some way to actually embed it. I just didn't spend the time to do it. But it would be really nice to actually highlight what that question is and just talk about it for a little bit. And if it's something that deserves to go back to at some point, that would be something else I'd like to note in there, or even just making little clips about specific questions that I answered. like all of this can be handled through software. It's just going to take some time to get there. But like to me, it's like I don't love answering the same question over and over, especially if my answer hasn't changed a whole lot, like my feelings about college or university. And it would be nice to just have one resource that has a lot of these questions that come up in these live streams, because the difference between this and like a non-live stream question is your train of thought. Hopefully you get some of these questions out of nowhere and you're like, oh yeah, that question, I need to ask that question. And that only seems to happen with live, whether it's in person or on live chats like this. Like when you hear somebody else's question, you're like, oh yeah, what about this question? That I think is really, really cool and something that's useful for these live chats. But what I want to do is make it so much more effective in the long run to not repeat myself all the time. I want to stay dry. You know what I mean? Anyways, thanks for that. Hi, Justin. Quick question. What would you say your biggest weaknesses are when it comes to programming, and what have you or do you do to counter it? So right now, my biggest weakness, I think, is machine learning, right? So like I have like a pretty solid base, I think. Like I would argue probably better than the vast majority of people, but like I still want to go much, much further with machine learning. There's just so much complex math and linear algebra and calculus that I really need to relearn to be good at machine learning, right? So just writing the code out is not incredibly hard to do, but to take a data set, a raw data set that I'm interested in, and make it really actionable, that is something I'm just not at yet. Perhaps you wouldn't call that programming. Perhaps you call that too much data science. When it comes to programming, the other side would be managing a really big project, right? So I've never managed something the size of Django, as in when I say the size, not the code base, but the community that uses that code on a regular basis. That's something I've never had the opportunity to do. Maybe at some point in the future, but personally, I don't love managing teams of people, right? Like if I were to grow Coding for Entrepreneurs, it would be to hire somebody that actually manages all the other people. Somebody that like essentially integrates everybody else's job, and then me and that person would just work on the vision and building things up. So that's like those are a couple areas that I could probably improve. And then programming itself, like I think there's like lower level code languages that I just don't know. Like C++, I don't know. C, I also don't like know the machine code. Like there's a lot of things with software that you know you go deeper and deeper down to the hardware level that I just don't know that I really want to. Same with like electronics in general. Like that's a whole nother area that I'm just really weak in. I mean I could make a long list of things that I would love to know and that I'm weak in. And if you're a teacher and you want to do some sort of cross collaboration and you know some of these areas that I just mentioned, or you just have other areas that are like, hey, I'm really good at this, like is there a way we can, you know, collaborate? I would love to do that. So hit me up. Science for Life, you've been following me for 4 years. Wow, thanks so much. I remember, I think you've been on a few live chats before. Is that right? Oh man, I'm now almost 30 minutes behind. Let me actually scroll down. Sorry if I missed a bunch of your questions from about 30 minutes ago. I'm going to go closer to live. Any courses on Django and Docker? Oh, thanks for the live chat. Appreciate it. 1 second. Django and Docker Compose. Personally, Docker Compose I think is a shortcut. I do a lot of things with Django and Docker. Docker Compose is cool, and I think there's nice things about it, but it doesn't really give you enough of an understanding about Docker, which I don't think is that complicated anyway. But I used to think it was incredibly complicated. Now I realized after using it enough, it's really cool, really easy to do. I definitely want to cover a lot more things in Django and Docker. I do intend to have a Kubernetes course with Django soon. Soon as in 6 months or a year. Like to me, that's soon, right? Because I got a lot of stuff going on. And a lot of things that like I really want to bring out for you guys. But if we want more of those things sooner, then perhaps I need to do a Patreon or something like that like gives this more collaborative voting process on what's next. I just typically go like, oh, this is really challenging. This is a really interesting project. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to go to the next one and so on. Anyways, hey, do you think in 5 years Vowlin, thank you for the live chat. Hey, do you think that in 5 years or more, websites will be replaced by mobile apps? So building websites is dying. Keep working, by the way. Thank you. So mobile apps is in the installed apps on the device. Now, the reason I actually do not think that mobile apps will take over, like they already seem to have taken over, but so many successful mobile applications have underlying cloud-based software, which means some sort of backend system like Django or many other ones. So at the very least, the backend systems for these mobile apps will almost always exist. But the reason I think something like a mobile phone or an installed app won't always be the most dominant thing is because the internet is completely open. These mobile platforms are not, right? So, I mean, it's true with certain countries and stuff like that. You might not necessarily have a whole access to everything, but using a VPN, it helps you have access to everything. Maybe not always, but I really think the web, the internet is always going to be the thing that wins out. So installed applications on mobile devices is going to increase. But what happens when augmented reality or virtual reality takes over? Do we still have a mobile device with us, or are we just wearing glasses all the time? And then what's going to control all the data that's coming out there? To me, it's always going to be on the internet. It's always going to be internet based because the internet is what drives so much of what we have today and now. So all of the IoT things that we do, Internet of Things, right? So internet is always an underlying feature to that. Does that mean that Django is going to be around in 5 or 10 or 20 years? I don't know. It's really hard to say. I mean, I don't think even Andrew Goodwin would say if Django is going to be around. They'll probably agree that it'll be around in 5 years, but will it be around in 10 or 20 or 30? Who knows? We don't know exactly where machine learning is going to take us, to be honest. I think that's a big feature of it. But I don't believe that building websites is dying. I think it's increasing and increasing significantly because the other thing is there's all these no-code solutions out there right now. What no-code solutions allow us to do is make automated workflows without learning how to code. I believe that's going to be a little bit of a, like, let's say a gateway drug into low code and then full code. Because really, if you have a full-on project built on some sort of automation and it's using somebody else's platform, whatever it is, if they change the rules of that platform, you're going to have to continue to adapt, of course. But what if that platform dies altogether? You'll definitely have to adapt to that as well. And to me, that always means that we're gonna lean towards actually having the raw software by the vast majority of software applications and web applications. So hopefully that answers your question. Cool. Scrapey, Selenium, or requests? Python requests to do web scraping. Python requests for sure, unless it's JavaScript heavy, then Selenium. Scrapey, maybe it's great. I have not given it a chance to say one way or the other. But for me, Python requests and requests HTML or even Beautiful Soup do the trick the vast majority of times. Or you can check out our asynchronous web scraping, supercharged asynchronous web scraping, which uses the asynchronous version of Selenium, which is called Arsenic. I'm assuming that at some point Selenium is going to have asynchronous too, but I cover all that on my website, cfe.sh. Got rejected by 2 companies, need motivation. 2 companies. There's like, how many companies in the world? 200,000? A million? Man, every business in the world needs software. Everyone's in the business of software now. Everyone needs the automation side of software. So keep going. You'll find something, I promise. You just need to continue to sharpen your skills. Maybe it's software skills, maybe it's soft skills, maybe it's how to sell. There's all sorts of things there. Yeah, just Oi says, stay strong, man. Keep learning and keep going. I totally agree with that. Please make it 30 days of web scraping using Python. So 30 days of Python does a lot of web scraping, but I'm really curious to see what web scraping it is that you want to see. Okay, so I just totally missed a bunch of questions, and I'm not going to try and scroll back to where I was. This looks like a Russian name. I don't know how to pronounce it. Hi, and thanks. You are doing a great job. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. It'd be great to hear about testing Django applications. about using PyTest mock and other stuff. Are you planning on doing such a course? I definitely write tests. Well, in the courses, I don't do tests nearly as much as I could. There's this concept of test-driven development where you write the test before anything else. To me, it's a little nonsensical, but some people absolutely love it to write the tests before you build whatever the application is. The reason I think it's a little nonsensical is like, well, what is it that you're trying to do? You're trying to test something that doesn't exist yet, so you're building to the test almost. It's kind of like studying to the test. I don't agree with that. I think it's much better to build what it is that you're trying to build and then use tests to ensure that what it is that you're trying to build are working correctly. But again, a lot of people really love this idea of test-driven development. I'm just not a huge fan myself because it's not how I learned and it's not how I build projects now. I always build tests later. Now, do I cover these things? I do from time to time, but Django has a lot of great built-in testing framework for unit testing each part of Django. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. It's 3 a.m. in India just for me. Wow, dang! Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, this is kind of late. I tried to go on earlier, but there was some tests that I was doing with my future live chat thing that I just haven't solved yet. So thanks for checking it out. Hopefully I can get to an earlier one at another time. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be doing some live stream like classes so that we can actually cover a topic and then answer questions for it after. I'm creating a sneaker bot to buy stuff online super fast. I'm using Puppeteer, but it's a bit slow. I need to interact with JavaScript. Okay, with the web page. Yeah, so check out Arsenic. So you want to use asynchronous code to do the scraping and potentially doing all the actions to buy things. Arsenic's really, really good for that. Because then you can do, 10, 20, 30 different pages at once, or almost at once concurrently, where it's switching back and forth really fast. So yeah, definitely check that out. How can I run a machine learning model in Django? So you need to actually load the model inside of like settings.py, for example. So you load the model and then, so then when you actually run the Django application, it's running, it's loading, it's ready to go. So then you can use that model inside of the Django app. Personally, I don't recommend this. I don't think you should use Django for your machine learning models. Instead, what you should do is just make a microservice using like Fast API or Flask, and then deploy that. And that's now a REST API that you call from Django to do the actual machine learning. Because you don't want, what you really don't want to have happen is something getting in the way of your standard Django project, your Django requests, and blocking requests because you're using too much memory for your machine learning model, for example. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But there are definitely ways that you could use Django as a micro framework itself. It doesn't have to be Flask or Fast API. I just think Flask and Fast API are a lot easier to do that. It's definitely something I do intend to cover at some point in the future. So make sure that you, I guess, have the notification icon on to check that out. I don't know. I'm assuming that if you're on here, you're probably subscribed. Like if you're not subscribed and you're on the live chat, why? I guess. What? Yeah. Why? Is Florida the future? Maybe. I don't know. That's a good question. Okay, I just scrolled again, and here we go. I'm getting some requests for WhatsApp clone. Interesting idea. All right. How do you work with large database tables, a million or billion rows? What do you think about this when you're designing data models? So if you're using a billion rows, you would probably need to write your own efficient SQL scripts for that. Django itself can handle raw SQL queries for query sets. So that's how I would go about doing it. Honestly, I've never worked with a billion rows of data before. That's a lot of data for real-time web applications and all that. So hopefully that answers it. But really, you'd want to learn SQL a lot. You'd want to know SQL really, really well to be able to handle that. I'm sure there's NoSQL things that can handle it really well too, but hopefully that answers your question. Got a question about, did I receive my email about it? I replied to your Django framework email. You felt great. Good. I'm glad. Thank you. Sorry, I don't get back to emails super quick because I get a lot of them, and sometimes sometimes they're literally just spam. You know, like it's like, hey, solve my homework problem. I'm not here to solve people's homework problems, but all right. So a few more minutes, guys. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. Got a lot of really good questions this time around. I really can't wait until I have a more robust way to answer these questions, because it would be awesome. Like, I think absolutely awesome to just be like, hey, just go check out, my site. I already have all that question broken down on this page. Like, that would be really, really cool. But anyways, guys, I got to run. I hear some kids getting a little upset, so I got to go be a dad for a little bit on this Sunday afternoon. Thanks so much for watching, guys.